Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. For the first time in a very long time, we are going live before noon Eastern. I wouldn't necessarily get used to this. I wouldn't necessarily say, buckle up, Buttercup. This is going to be the time. It's probably not. But there are a lot of things going on, namely parent-teacher conferences are today. So yours truly will not be available at the regular recording time. So we have a lot to get to. I actually thought about doing one of those cold opens with the little YouTube clicker-clacker thing. I contemplated it. I kind of mulled it over for a second. I was like, is it worth doing? I got to tell you, I am about as frustrated this morning as I've been in a long time. In fact, I would say I'm probably about as frustrated as I've been since, let me think. It doesn't feel, oddly enough, it doesn't feel that long ago. I think I'm about as frustrated as I was on the morning of October 10th, 2025. October 10th, 2025. So just over a month ago. You know why I'm almost as frustrated as I was on October 10th, 2025? Do you want to know why? Because that's the last time I woke up after Philadelphia sports teams went 0 for 3 the night before. 0 for 3. You know how hard it is to go 0 for 3 as a city in a given night? 0 for 3. Because on October 9th, the Phillies got bounced out of the playoffs by the Dodgers. The Flyers fell. And the Eagles got their asses kicked on Thursday Night Football. Here we are a month later. I tell myself yesterday, it's going to be a good day. I wake up in the morning feeling like not P. Diddy. I wake up yesterday, I'm feeling good about the world. My kids are all excited for their cousin's birthday party. We go to church. It's a great day. Feeling good. Realize right before Mass, the birthday party is next weekend. My children are going to be very upset by that. Very, very upset. So we get through Mass, and I say to my wife, hey, it'd be a great idea. Here's an idea. Let's take the kids to the Sixers game. Tickets are really cheap. Let's go. We'll get lower level seats. It'll be great. And it was great. And then I had a momentary feeling of failure as a parent, not because we had to pivot to a Sixers game, and not because I didn't realize VJ Edgecombe wasn't playing. But I realized that I had failed my children because in my mind, we've been to a few Sixers games over the course of my kids' lifetimes. And what I learned is that, no, only my 10-year-old had been to a Sixers game before. And I very, very, very much remember that game. It was a Sixers-Rockets game where Joel Embiid hyperextended his knee. My son was like 2 years old, maybe. I had him in a baby carrier. It was when I was still teaching. It was like a night out with all the teachers and their kids. I remember that night. That's the last time I took any of my kids to a Sixers game. And then I went, oh, that's not very good. Now, you could maybe make the argument, Russ, you probably saved your kids from getting too far into a team that isn't going to love them back. And you might be right. But then my 8-year-old goes, Dad, I'm so excited for my first Sixers game. I was like, what do you mean first? He's like, it's my first Sixers game. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, I've never been to a basketball game before. And then it hit me. The failure hit me. It did. My daughter's 5. So 5 years old for your first game, not a big deal. The 2-year-old, not a big deal, right? He's 2. But I felt bad for my 8-year-old. He's gone all these years without a basketball game. So I've made this solemn vow that we will be going to at least one other Sixers game this year. I felt horrible. They had a great time. But in the course of that game, Miami shot the lights out against the Sixers. I mean, absolutely bludgeoned the Sixers. Norman Powell looked like the reincarnation of Kobe Bryant. It was absolutely absurd. I mean, everything that guy touched turned to gold. I could not believe what I was seeing. I didn't even mean to start the show with the Sixers. Maybe we'll come back to the Sixers in a little bit. But so the Sixers lose. But it's a good experience for the kids. They're happy. I'm happy. My wife's happy. Everybody's happy. And I go, all right, kids, we're going to head home. On the way home, we stopped and got ourselves a little La Colombe. Went and got a nice little draft latte in Bryn Mawr. I was feeling great about it. God bless. Love the people at La Colombe. Feeling good. I got the Eagles game pulled up on the phone, sitting on the dashboard for the kids to watch. Eagles go up 21-0. We get home. I think we got home when it was 14-0, but Eagles go up 21-0. I tweet something out like, goodness gracious. Could you believe what was happening? And it's like, this is one of those wins that you just need to have, where you feel good from the start of the game to the end of the game. You lay a biblical beatdown on a division rival, and you feel great about it. And then over the course of the next 40-plus minutes, the Eagles forgot what it meant to score. Over the next 40 minutes, the Eagles didn't actively appear interested in attempting to score. The offensive game plan went out the window. We learned post-game that apparently a five-man front by the Cowboys was essentially like trying to get someone in to solve the reset, or to solve like an inscription on an alien artifact, like trying to get a 3-year-old to interpret hieroglyphics, like trying to get your great uncle Tony to understand what the hell the guy behind the counter at your local restaurant was trying to say. It didn't go well. And not only did it not go well, but it really, really, really made me think to myself, I think the Eagles might actually be screwed. Now, I have not gone hyperbolic this entire season. I have remained very even keel this entire season. I have told you why again and again. Wasn't really concerned about some of the issues that were around the team. I wasn't as bothered by the nonstop, incessant questioning of things. But last Friday, I broke. Last Friday, I went in on the rats in the organization that continue to go off to the media and to try to give them a little crumb, a little bit of cheese, right, to the media. Oh, there are people who are unhappy with Jalen Hurts in this organization. Oh, there are people who are unhappy. So Friday, I broke just a little bit. I got upset on Friday. I let it out. I had a little moment of healing. I let some of the frustration boil over. And I thought to myself, they're going to go in on Sunday. They're going to beat the Cowboys probably pretty handily. And we're going to be talking about a Black Friday game that everybody looks forward to against Chicago. Big game. And you go, all right, good job, boys. Nicely done. Well done. It's not what happened. So Eagles go up 21-0. They do so running all kinds of fun concepts. We saw a jet sweep by Devontae Smith. We saw a very early hookup between Hurts and A.J. Brown for a touchdown, where he does the Michael Irvin trying to do the sound the horn or whatever at the Miami game or whatever. So you see that. Then you see what looks like another touchdown. A.J. reaches out. He gets 1 foot in. He touches the pylon, but his other foot comes down out of bounds. Jalen Hurts runs it up the middle. You go, all right, well, whatever. Cool. Good stuff. There's a play that Devontae Smith makes in this game where he is fully horizontal. It is absolutely incredible. He is legitimately horizontal. It looked like a magician made the table on which he was laying disappear. And everything was going great. And the Eagles defense was standing up to it all. And the Eagles defense was causing turnovers. And throughout the course of the game, even while the offense started going from like a really well-tuned engine into being like one that had a knocking in it at halftime, right? To coming out in the second half and being like, holy shit, I don't think it's an engine anymore. To the end of the game where you said, well, if there was an engine, it was sent to the fucking moon by Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni, who stood around like a couple of dweebazoids with their fingers shoved up their rear ends. They looked clueless. You want to talk about making any kind of adjustment? There's no adjustment. I'll tell you what. The best adjustment that Patullo or Sirianni may have made is that they did a little bit of yoga before the game and they opened up. They just opened up the back a little bit, got a little cracking going in the back. That's the only adjustment they made the entire second half. That's it. Oh, Sirianni dropped his pen. Let me pick that up. Crack, crack, crack. Adjustment. That's it. This coaching staff didn't do jack diddly shit at halftime. It was an abomination to be up 21-0 against a division opponent while you are in the midst of a very, very heated race for the number 1 seed in this conference against a team that went out and laid a biblical beatdown on Tampa Bay on Sunday night in the Los Angeles Rams. Instead of being able to go into yet another week and saying, hey, if we control what we can control, home field advantage is there for the taking. It very much looks like it's not, because the lack of adjustments, the lack of ability to do a damn thing, to adjust to anything that Dallas was showing you, anything, it doomed them. It is fundamentally inexcusable to go 40-plus minutes with 0 points against this Dallas team. And I get it. Oh, Russ, you have to remember,
Dallas made some really key acquisitions at the trade deadline. It is a better defense than the last time these teams played.
I don't care. Stop it. Did Dallas's question to all of the excuse makers out there, of which there aren't as many today, but there are still some. Did the Eagles, when they went up 21-0, the defense that they played there, did that defense just like die and get replaced by an entirely different defense the last 45 minutes of the game? Or did the Eagles play the same defense that they went up 21-0 on and then just failed to adjust and make anything of value happen the rest of the game? It's the latter. And that's the concerning thing, because it feels like week in and week out, we have these same conversations.
Oh, it doesn't look like that coaching staff is doing much to adjust to what the opposition is doing.
They look lost, dazed, confused, overmatched, everything bad. Everything, anything, and everything bad that we have feared about this Eagles coaching staff. Oh, it came up. It came up. It was bad. And Kevin Petullo, wherever you are, I just want you to know that if it were up to anyone, and I mean literally anyone in the Delaware Valley, other than Nick Sirianni, your ass would have been left in Dallas. And yet we wake up on a Monday and we have not received word that Kevin Petullo is fired, which is part of a grander concern that I have right now. If I may I? Of course I may. It's my show. One of the things that a head coach can do is choose to go outside of the organization, to go out and find the best and the brightest minds that do not currently reside within their organization. And there is an inherent risk with that, because if you bring in an established coach, there is always going to be that thought that, well, if things don't go well with the head coach, one of the assistants is going to be made the interim coach and perhaps have the ability to long-term take that job. When Vic Fangio was brought in here, it was a great hire. It was a great out-of-the-box hire, and ultimately was one that paid off in a big, big way. And there was also no fear that Vic Fangio was going to take over the team. I don't think Nick Sirianni at any point worried that Vic Fangio was going to get the head coaching job. So that was a very low risk, extremely high reward decision. When Kellen Moore was brought in, that was a risk, because it was possible that Kellen Moore, whose star continued to rise over the course of time, was viewed as an eventual head coach. And the thought was that, you know what, if Kellen Moore gets this offense really going, and there is some kind of discord behind the scenes between Sirianni and Howie Roseman, or Sirianni and Jeffrey Lurie, or Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, or Sirianni and anyone, then maybe Kellen Moore could theoretically slide into that spot and take over as head coach. And yet the decision was made by whomever to bring in Kellen Moore. And you know what happened? The Eagles won the Super Bowl because they went outside of their organization. And while it might have been Nick Sirianni's grand macro concepts that we saw week in and week out on the offensive side of the ball, Kellen Moore isn't an idiot. Kellen Moore knows how to run an offense. Kellen Moore knows how to maximize the weapons on his team. And we saw a generational run last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, led in large part by an offensive line that mauled and mashed the opposition in the trenches each and every snap. They ran at will, led in large part by Mekhi Becton. They managed to pass protect incredibly well. And this offense was about as damn good and about as versatile as could be. And yes, there were weeks that we would complain that the Eagles didn't throw the ball enough, and that Saquon Barkley might have been leaned upon a little bit too much. But when all the chips were down, Jalen Hurts got the job done in the Super Bowl, outplayed Patrick Mahomes, and the Eagles won. And they hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. And now this year, Kellen Moore leaves in the offseason. And rather than go out and try to find one of the best and brightest minds in the entire NFL, a rising quarterbacks coach, perhaps an offensive coordinator that was let go because the head coach was let go at their respective stop, instead of doing that, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman decided, oh, no. Let's let Nick Sirianni hire from within. That's never gone wrong before. That didn't happen with Sean Desai. Yeah, that didn't blow up in our face. Oh, yeah. That didn't happen with Brian Johnson before as offensive coordinator. Yeah, promoting internally, that didn't go poorly before. It's as if these people had a lobotomy. It's as if these people had men in black show up at their door and say, oh, 2023? Hey, look right here. Look right here. Hold on. Hey, look right here. Okay. 2023. It never happened. When you wake up, okay, when things get going, when you read, I just want you to remember that. Oh, here we go. We'll do it like this. Here we go. Ready? Ready? Here. Okay. All right. Get real close. 2023 never happened. It never happened. Eagles went to a Super Bowl. They played really well. The next year, your offensive coordinator, he did leave for Indianapolis, but he was a loser and nobody thought he was good anyway, right? Right. Okay. Okay, cool. And then you just didn't play a football season. And then Kellen Moore came in and you guys won a Super Bowl, but it really wasn't Kellen Moore. It was all Nick Sirianni. All right, go. Except that didn't happen. The men in black didn't show up at Jeffrey Lurie's store. They didn't show up at Nick Sirianni's store. They didn't show up at Howie Roseman's store. And yet, the fact that the Eagles made the stupid decision to promote from within once before, they did not learn a lesson. They instead doubled down and said, you know what, Nick? Kellen Moore, he might have been a good offensive coordinator, but we're not so convinced. Nick, I bet you have a guy who's even better. We can go out and look across the league, or you could give one of your guys from within a shot. Which guy do you like the most? And he says to himself, hey, you know what, guys? I think I like this guy, Kevin Patullo. I think he's a really good offensive mind. I want to give Nick Patullo a good opportunity because I think he's going to be a good offensive coordinator for us. And he and we're in sync. We got the synergy. Yeah, we got some great synergy between us. And we happen to evaluate and kind of game plan together. And, he's been part of this. So why bring in an outside voice? Well, bring up one of my guys who's going to be a total yes man and absolutely not question anything I say or do. I mean, sorry. He's a great guy and we are aligned with our vision. #synergy. It has been a disaster. It has been an abject failure this season. This running game is non-existent. I see people trashing Saquon Barkley left and right. Oh, Saquon's lost a step. Saquon's not as explosive. I want you to just go back. Let me go all over Twitter because there are smarter people than me that have done film breakdowns. This is not a Saquon Barkley issue. Is Saquon Barkley pausing at the line like he typically does to try to find a hole? He is. Does Tank Bigsby pause? No. Tank Bigsby just runs. He just takes the ball and tries to bowl through as many people as he can, as quickly as he can, as strongly as he can. And maybe that's what the Eagles offense needs right now. But Saquon typically takes a moment to look for the hole, and then he explodes through it, except the holes aren't there. I would argue a large part of that is, 1, Mekhi Becton is no longer here. 2, Cam Jurgens is hurt. 3, Landon Dickerson is hurt. 4, Lane Johnson was out. And 5, Jordan Mailata doesn't quite look as good as he did last year. Well, that just happens to be your entire offensive line that have their own issues. Everybody has an issue. I love Jordan Mailata. I don't think he looks as good this year. Okay? I just don't. I think a lot of that maybe has something to do with no Mekhi Becton. And now, it feels like every game we're forced to look at Steen, right? He's not good. You see a guy like Matt Pryor come into games, he's not good. Cam Jurgens had his lunch eaten yesterday. Had his lunch absolutely eaten on the interior. Landon Dickerson, I'm convinced, is not healthy and has not been healthy since training camp. I am fully convinced that the back issue that he's had has not gotten any better. And there was another injury, I forget what it was, but Landon Dickerson, I don't think is healthy. And then you're missing Lane Johnson. And now I get that we historically have looked over this and said, all right, anytime Lane Johnson's out, you're pretty screwed. Like the Eagles do not win a lot of games when Lane Johnson's out. And that's true. And if this were a slog, if this were like a 14-7 final score, a 14-10 final score, and you had to scrap and claw for every single yard, that'd be one thing. But you went up 21-0. So, apologies if I'm not willing to just allow the Eagles to play the Lane Johnson card. There are issues with this offensive line. That is very clear. There are issues with Saquon Barkley's inability to get things going consistently. I put a lot of that on the line, but there was a play late in this game. I mean, we'll kind of jump all around. There's a play late in this game. Saquon Barkley is about 2 yards away from picking up the first down, and he gets stopped short. And then on third down, instead of getting rid of the football, I don't know what Jalen Hurts was thinking, but third down, it's like 3rd and 2. The Eagles need any kind of a neutral or slightly positive pickup to get within tush push range, right? 3rd and 2. They could have theoretically run the tush push and then maybe run it a second time and gotten the first down and gotten to the other side of the 2-minute warning and gotten into field goal range for Jake Elliott, who I'm convinced would not have missed the second field goal in the same game. They could have very easily taken Jalen Hurts and created some kind of a design run or an RPO or something. And instead, Jalen Hurts has the ball in his hand and he drops and he drops and he drops and he gets sacked. Now you're out of field goal range and now you're out of any kind of realistic opportunity to get a first down, and Dallas gets the ball back. There was a moment late in this game, by the way, where it feels like, oh, the Cowboys are absolutely going to win this game. They're going right down the field. Pickens, I think, has a reception across the middle of the field, and you think, holy shit, this thing is over. You may as well just let him score. They didn't. The Cowboys are at was it first and goal? Or it was first and goal from the 3 or the 4 yard line. The Eagles stop them. They turn it over on downs on the 1 yard line. Eagles' first play coming out is a nice little out route to the sideline to A.J. Brown. All right, your backs are no longer against the wall, and that leads to a point where you should be able to execute a 2-minute drill, go down the field, get the field goal, win the game. And yet they didn't do it. The offensive play calling on this team is as follows. Get a lead, sometimes through somewhat aggressive or interesting concepts. Get a lead, turn incredibly conservative, don't attempt to score the rest of the game. That's what it's felt like. And that's what it felt like on Sunday. Instead of playing to win, the Eagles went up 21-0 and decided to play not to lose. And that's the problem. Any of the interesting stuff that we saw early in this game where you start going, whoa, did I just see A.J. Brown run over the middle of the field? Whoa, did I just see a jet sweep? Whoa, did I just see something that kind of looked like an interesting play calling happening on the first few drives? And then it was as if Nick Sirianni and or Kevin Patullo said, that is enough of that. We will be finished for today. We do not need other playoff-bound teams to see what is in our immaculate playbook. What the hell were they doing? Genuinely, what the hell were the Eagles coaches doing? Because, I don't think this falls on Jalen Hurts. I don't think it falls on A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or even Saquon Barkley. Offensive line is another issue. Some of this falls on them. But, let's just take a gander really quickly at how the Eagles offense actually performed over the course of the game, okay? Because once you take into account that they scored the way they did, everything after that was an abject failure. And so, again, let's take a look at the series charts. Okay, Zach Berman put this out. I don't know if he's the one who came up with it or what, but I saw this from Zach Berman, so we'll give him a shout here. Here are the drives. Okay, this is every drive that the Eagles offense was involved with. Okay, and we're going to get to what happened at the end of the game, but take a look here first. All right, the first drive of the game, right? Touchdown. Second drive. Touchdown. Third drive. Touchdown. Okay, cool. Question. What happened after that? I mean, look, you ran 7 plays, you ran 12 plays, you ran 6 plays, 3 touchdowns. You're up 21-0. Okay. Fourth drive. 3 total plays, a 3 and out. Punt. 1 play to end the half. Because remember, the Eagles at the end of halves, even if they have possession and timeouts and a minute or less remaining, they just give up. There's no attempt to try to pick up a 10-yard chunk yardage play, a 15-yard chunk yardage play, maybe 1 shot downfield, and then let Jake Elliott go out and kick a 55-yard field goal. They don't even try. The Eagles offense the Eagles coaches are that afraid, I guess, of a turnover that they say, you know what? We get that in theory, our very skilled and talented offense could potentially go down the field and pick up points. We'd rather not even run the risk of a turnover. So let's just run a play and get on out of here and get to halftime. Okay. So 3 touchdowns in a row, a 3 and out, and then waving the white flag before half. Okay. You went 7 plays on the first drive, 12 plays on the second drive, 6 plays on the third drive. Okay. You come out of halftime. Your first possession is another 3 and out that ends in a punt. You only remain on the field for 1 minute and 27 seconds, which to that point in the game was the shortest possession the Eagles had. Okay. Next possession. Oh, it was a doozy. They ran 6 plays on the drive. It lasted all of 2 minutes and 9 seconds, and they punted. Third possession of the second half. 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Boy, they are really eating up the clock. 3 plays. Punt. Okay. Then you get into the fourth quarter. And what happens? Take a look. You have, what was it, the fourth quarter? I don't remember now. But you look at the fourth drive. Missed field goal. Okay. 7 plays. 3 minutes and 53 seconds. You're feeling a little bit better about the time on field. Okay. Missed field goal. That stings. It does. Went wide right. Not by much, but it went wide right. Okay. Next possession. 4 minutes and 12 seconds eaten off the clock. 6 plays, 43 yards. Fumble. Saquon Barkley trying to make something happen. Ball gets punched out from behind. Bad turnover. Could we say fully unacceptable fumble? Yeah, not a great time for a turnover. It never is. And then final possession, like we were talking about before. You, in theory, should be able to go down the field and get yourself 3 points, end the game, get the hell out of Dallas, and like thank your lucky stars. And instead, 5 plays in 2 minutes and 3 seconds, and you punt. And what's not pictured here is what I think was actually the backbreaker of the game. But I just want you to kind of go over that for a second. 3 straight touchdowns, then you go punt, give up before the end of the half, punt, 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 missed field goal, fumble, punt. That's your second half. Someone tell me where any of that is acceptable. Somebody tell me where the decision makers who led you to 3 touchdowns to start the game, where did they go the rest of the game? Because the rest of that game feels like it was coached by an entirely different group of people. Now, we have to get to one other thing that was absolutely, totally inexcusable. And as much as I want to yell about Kevin Patullo, which I still probably will a little bit more, Xavier Gipson, I have no idea what the fuck Xavier Gipson was thinking. But in a tie game with 5 minutes and 20 seconds or so remaining in the game, Xavier Gipson is standing on the 1-yard line to field a kickoff. Okay? He's on like the 1-yard line. I'm actually going back. I'm going to play. I'm pretty sure he was on the 1. He might have been at the 2-yard line. He's at like the 1.5-yard line. Let the fucking ball go out the back of the end zone, you moron. He's at the 1.5-yard line. Take the touchback. All of the momentum in the game is with the Cowboys. Let the ball go through the end zone. Let it go. There is not a Dallas Cowboy within the same area code when that ball is actually brought in. Okay? There wasn't like some kind of spectacular coverage where 3 Cowboys are standing there waiting to down it at the 1. Let the ball go through. And he does it. Okay. So he cuts out to the left. Then he does a little bit of a dance, waiting for a block. He gets one. He cuts. Guy kind of clips him a little bit. Then 2 dudes pop in. The ball pops out. Every Jets fan who has watched Gipson fumble the ball is like, yeah, that's exactly why we got rid of him. The Jets, the New York Jets, the Jetropolitans, the Jets, the team that stinks, the team that is often a punchline in the National Football League. They got sick of this guy and his lack of ball security. And the Eagles said,
let's go pick him up. I'm sure he'll be able to be better for us because we're the Philadelphia Eagles. We're the gold standard.
He loses the ball. And not only does he lose the ball, it's not like he loses at the 40. It's not like he made a man miss and he gets to midfield and the punter somehow inexplicably punches the ball out and he gets to recover the No. The ball's out and recovered at like the 7 or the 6-yard line. Boneheaded play. The conversation among special teams going out there has to be, hey, if the ball is remotely close to the end zone, let the ball go. You have over 5 minutes left. Get the touchback. Put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. Let him do his thing. Hope and pray that Kevin Patullo and or Nick Sirianni are able to reverse the lobotomy they had after the first 3 series when you're up 21-0. Hope they get their brains back situated in their heads And Jalen Hurts can lead the team down, get a touchdown, maybe at worst a field goal, and you feel good about it. I have no idea what Gibson was doing. Gibson should have been left in Dallas. Now, he was like hurt after the play, and we wish him the best, and hopefully he's okay, because on a human level, we don't want to see anybody hurt. I'm sure there are good hospitals in Dallas that he could have remained in. He should not be back on the Philadelphia Eagles after. That is an egregious decision, and it cannot be accepted. Britton Covey's on your practice squad. I don't think he's particularly good, but he's fine. He's sure-handed, and he doesn't piss me off. Bring Covey back. Let Covey return kicks. I don't care. That is an inexcusable error. And by the way, that, as much of it as anything else, could be the thing that costs you home field advantage in the playoffs. It could be. Because that doesn't happen with a more sure-headed, sure-handed return man. And I would still like to believe that Jalen Hurts and company go down the field and get a few points. And I get it. To that point, second half, they were dreadful. Punt, missed field goal, punt. I get it. I still would like to put the ball in the quarterback's hands and give him a shot. And instead, Gibson tries to play hero ball and gets embarrassed and the ball pops out. Saquon Barkley's fumble was bad, but there he is trying to make a play on offense. I can't totally fault him. He also gets a punched out from behind. I can't totally fault him. It's not a great time to turn over the ball, but I'll give Saquon Barkley a little bit of grace. What the hell has Gibson ever done? What did we ever do? What did we ever do to deserve an empty-headed fucking dipshit like Xavier Gibson to go out on national TV, go into business for himself? We're trying to cheer on a Super Bowl contending team. And that guy goes out and goes into business for himself, embarrasses himself, and then isn't held accountable. If you're a pro wrestling fan, you might pick up that reference. And if not, well, I guess we'll see. Gibson should not be back on this team. Patullo should be gone. I just realized that the comments haven't been up the entire show, and there have been a lot of them, so I'll try to go out there in a second. This was a painful loss. Usually, over the course of an Eagles season, I feel okay about some things. I feel bad about some things. I try to stay level-headed. Yesterday's game was one that I just felt the life leaving me. All right, I felt the life being sucked out of me by incompetence on the part of the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff. And I got to a point late in this game where I said, they're going to actually lose this. You know, most of the game I sit back and I go, this team is still more talented. This team still has a Super Bowl pedigree. I trust this team. They're going to get it done. It's going to be the perfect thing where the Eagles win the game, but WIP and the sports radio hosts, they all get to complain about the way that you won the game, but you still won the game. And that's going to be the conversation. Nope. Entire coaching staff went out to lunch at halftime and nobody came back. It's the only guess we can have. All right, I'm going to go over to the comments here, and then I got to get you to more stuff because there was a lot that came out of this. Chris Freed is down in Dallas at the airport. His flight has been delayed 4 hours, still stuck. There are many 7-Elevens across this airport, and I do ask again why there are no Wawas at Philly International. That's a good question. Should put a Sheets at Philly International. So. Chris also says, speaking of the game, my first Eagles game as a kid was the 1985 Vikings game where the Eagles blew a 23-0 lead and lost. 21 points is nothing, and I was here for that one as well. So I think that means Chris Freed is not allowed at Eagles games anymore. Okay, good. We've at least figured that one out. Good. Little Griffith 7126 says, I'm a big fan of Eagles season. Better Eagles kick Chicago Bears butts. Okay, so big fan of the Eagles season, I think that means. The Eagles better kick Chicago's butts. Well, we'll see. I would hope they will, but who the hell knows? And also says, Eagles need to fire Kevin Patullo. They need a new offensive coordinator. I agree. They do. But we'll see. I see Fawcett is here. Says this reminds me of the demise of Doug Peterson. I'm not sure that it's that bad yet, but it's pretty bad. Tony Escargot says, my God, Russ, did Ant cut your hair? God help you. I saw that there were like some pieces here in the front. I don't want to have like full on bangs. Let me just, I'll fix this a little bit. The hair was getting too long. It was getting getting too long. I got multiple hairs cut though, Tony, not just one, but thanks for the super chat. You're a good person, Tony. Good person. Greg. Fire breathing games. OG says these Eagles got no hot rock. I think there are guys on the team who do have heart, but I question the mentality of a lot of the guys on that team. And I'm going to get you to a whole bunch of post-game quotes because there were some that I found really, really concerning. Joe Papel says, brutal loss, which will be felt when the NFC Championship game is on the road. That's the fear now, is that it's going to be out in Los Angeles. If you make it that far, that would be out in Los Angeles instead of here in Philadelphia, which would be significantly better, obviously. All right, let's see. Connor says, I'm fully prepared for watching Sixers mid-table ball and Flyers fringe playoff hockey for a couple months after the Eagles are eliminated. Eagles did not game plan correctly at all. This one is on KP, Sirianni, Stoutland, and company. So I know a lot of people, many people, they're saying this is Stoutland's fault. Preparation-wise, maybe. I'm going to get you to the offensive line's quotes because I think that they're kind of concerning. I'm like very convinced here that, you can go back and you can say, hey, Howie did good business here, did good business there, did really good business before the trade deadline. The not bringing back Mekhi Becton thing was the thing that in the moment I questioned really, really loudly. And he did not get bank from the Chargers. And I don't understand why, coming off a Super Bowl win, why would you not just pay Mekhi Becton? Why? What was the thought? Why? This offensive line was a juggernaut last year. Incredible. And they decided to cut costs. And I guess they thought that some combination of Steen, Pryor, whatever was going to work. It hasn't worked. It's been horrible. You got poor Fred Johnson out there in for Lane Johnson. He's not the same player. He's not the same caliber player, but he's not supposed to be. Very frustrating. I'm going to get out to the offensive line there in a little bit, though. Papel said that was the Miami prevent defense. So. Fawcett says, I hear Chip Kelly's available. He is. Brian Dabble is also available, and people are talking about it, so that's not great. Jason Franklin with a little bit of positivity says, the Rams still have to play the Lions and the Seahawks, so all is not lost on home field yet. Maybe this will be the wake-up call that the Eagles needed. Hopefully it will be. They better hope so. Fire-breathing games OG says, getting embarrassed by Eberflus is exactly what got the coaching is what this coaching staff deserved. Our Walmart brand offensive coordinator was actually in the running for some kind of head coaching job. If the gods be good, maybe there'll be a head coaching vacancy and the Eagles will just like Kevin Petula go off. Okay, I'm going to say something here and people are going to agree and some are going to disagree and we're going to do the whole thing, okay? I want to be really, really clear about something because I think it's critical, okay? I genuinely think it's critical. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, you need to look across the street. Go look at the brick Stadium, Citizens Bank Park. Jeffrey Lurie needs to learn a very valuable lesson that John Middleton did not learn. John Middleton got really excited that his big money guys performed, got the Phillies to a World Series, and yes, they came up short, but, on the whole, the owner and the front office together decided, let's run it back. We don't need to change too much. Run it back. We'll find the same success. Didn't happen. Then the next year they said, you know what? It was kind of a fluke. We still have the talent. The bats are still good. Let's go back. We don't have to change it much. Run it back. And then they lost to the Mets and they said, okay, well, you know what? Maybe we need to tweak a few things. Maybe the vibes aren't quite as important, but the core of the roster, we're going to keep that together because this is still a team that could have won the World Series, right? And then probably should have beaten the Diamondbacks and definitely should have beaten the Mets, but it's going to happen. Just trust us. It's going to happen. And then they got curb stomped by the Dodgers this year. Now they're left with a lot of questions and a lot of aging players and questions about their core. And it really feels like that nice big open window is gone. Lurie needs to learn from Middleton. Learn from the sins of others rather than the sins of your own past. Learn from what happened with the Phillies. This is, if you wanted to say that they should learn from the sins of the past, they should look at the Brian Johnson thing and even the Sean Desai thing and say, oh yeah, when the internal hire doesn't work, when the internal promotion doesn't work, you got to cut bait. This shouldn't be a Nick Sirianni decision today. I don't necessarily like the idea of a front office or an ownership coming in and telling the coach, you have to do this. But this isn't good enough. It is not. So one of two things is at play. Either Kevin Petula has done a horrific job with autonomy, right? Maybe some grander concepts coming in from Nick Sirianni, but Kevin Petula, if he's been given autonomy, this isn't good enough. Replace the offensive coordinator. Do it now. There are other people in that building who could probably scheme. If you need to bring somebody in from out of the organization, I don't necessarily like the Giants' old coach, but he did have success in college with Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying that's the guy. I'm just pointing out that there are good offensive minds out there that could probably come in. If Nick Sirianni is actually worth a damn, maybe Nick Sirianni should be the one calling plays. Like, if he's giving you the concepts that Kellen Moore had to work under, and Kellen Moore turned this thing into a Super Bowl winning offense, well, if he could do that, and Kevin Patullo can't, well, then you got to replace Kevin Patullo. If Sirianni's supposed to be this like good offensive mind, maybe it's time for Sirianni to call plays. Maybe there is time for a little bit of accountability. Maybe it is time to be more than the CEO coach. Maybe you actually do have to call plays and have direct fingerprints on the game. Maybe that's what has to happen. But if it turns out that Kevin Patullo has no autonomy, and instead this really has been Nick Sirianni all along, I have lots of questions and I have a lot of concerns. And no matter what, you got to look at the head coach and say, yo, your boy isn't getting it done. Time to go. This offense has way too much talent. And while I get that there are offensive line issues, this team has too much talent to be a total non-factor in the run game. This team has far too much talent to have almost every week a conversation about why A.J. Brown isn't getting the ball, why the route trees are so basic bitch offense. It's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Someone has to be accountable. And you can't wait till the end of the season. If you wait until the end of the season, you may be waiting too late. And I get that if you're trying to learn from the sins of the past, the Sean Desai demotion and kind of dismissal, that didn't go well. Maybe the Eagles are worried that they're going to get burned again. But this is an offensive-minded head coach. He should be able to kind of stem the tide. He should be able to prevent this thing from falling all the way apart. I'd argue right now, it's kind of hanging on by a few strings. You have a couple more games like that, the strings will all be broken and it'll be over. You're not going to get away with this kind of a game in the postseason against better teams. It will not happen. Okay. Connor Buss with a good note here, and this comes into the Union point that we'll make a little bit later on. Philly teams failed to score after 5:30. They did. It was a bad day. It was a bad day for the Philadelphia Union. We're going to get there in a little bit. All right. I'm going to have to pause going out to the comments really quick because I have a whole bunch of stuff that I need to get to and not a lot of time to do it. Okay. Emmanuel Acho went on to his podcast and he slammed Saquon Barkley and essentially said Saquon Barkley is largely to blame for what has happened to this Eagles offense. He went over on Speakeasy, his show with LaShawn McCoy. And so I'll give you real quick, a little sample, a little nugget of Emmanuel Acho, and if it's fair or not. Because then there was a Philly media person, a former Eagle, who then came out and railed against Emmanuel Acho. Let's go out to Emmanuel Acho first, talking about Saquon Barkley's drop-off this season.
That's some bull crap. How Saquon? He's best player on the field.
It's about 2 minutes, 50 seconds in the game. It's 1st and 10. Throw a swing pass to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley does a spin move on air on the sideline. DeMar being overshown.
He did. He actually did a double spin. He spun like as the ball was coming in, and then he tried another one. He got taken down on the sideline. That's fair.
Tackles him.
Bad move.
Now it's 2nd and 10. We get you the ball to Saquon Barkley again. Saquon Barkley, if you do not slip for whatever reason, it's the 1st down. Eagles are driving. You slip.
That's the play where he has it looks like in any other scenario, he does have a defender coming in, but like virtually any other scenario you could play out, Saquon Barkley picks up that 1st down. You get to the other side of the 2-minute warning, and Jake Elliott kicks a field goal, and you win the game. And instead, you end up in that 3rd and 2, and then Hurts gets sacked.
Once again, now it's 3rd and 2. Terrible play call, so you can sprinkle some blame as well on to Kevin Patullo. It's 3rd and 2. Like 2 minutes, 15 seconds left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Just run the ball. Even if you gain no yards, you tush push. But you try to pass the ball, you get sacked. Correct. To me, Saquon Barkley has been a non-factor this season, and it's time we call it out.
So there are people that have tried to call out the idea that Saquon Barkley hasn't been as effective. But in doing so, you have to look at what the offensive line has and has not created in front of him. And that ultimately is where we come back to the the sense of reason, the voice of reason, a guy who like this year I think has done like a total face turn. Seth Joyner, because Seth Joyner heard what Emmanuel Acho had to say, and he lit Emmanuel Acho's ass up big time. All right, let's go out to Seth Joyner here for a moment. Seth Joyner does not, to be fair, does not agree with Emmanuel Acho's analysis. Let's go out to Seth Joyner.
Social media saying the same thing. You know, I'm watching Emmanuel Acho yesterday, you know, him and Shady in their podcast, and he's talking about, oh, nobody's talking about Saquon's not what he was. Man, shut the hell up. Because you know what? You don't know anything. If you're a football guru and you're watching football with your eyes, especially as a defensive player, and you're looking at how pathetic this offensive line is playing right now, there's not a thing in your mind that says that you believe that Saquon Barkley is not what he was. Okay?
Correct. Here's where I'd be concerned. If Saquon Barkley were to get out in space and look slow, I'd be concerned. If Saquon Barkley were to get out with time and space in a one-on-one scenario against a defender and find himself unable to even remotely get free of that defender, I'd be worried. Now, have there been moments this season where Saquon Barkley hasn't maybe been as quick to lower the shoulder and get into the physical play? There have been a few. He seems to try to be more evasive than confrontational. And I wonder if there might be an underlying injury that would maybe explain that. But I don't think this is on Saquon Barkley. I mentioned earlier in the show, like Tank Bigsby, Tank Bigsby doesn't really think. He just grabs the ball and he tries to put a hole in somebody. It's almost like watching, in some ways, it's kind of like watching Derrick Henry run at times, right? This dude just runs north-south. There's no east-west in his game. He doesn't actually know that east and west exist. He just runs forward. And a lot of times it works. But again, Tank Bigsby, for as good as he's been, he's not the guy that you're really trying to build the offense around or that you're trying to make a focal point of the offense. If the Eagles are great with Saquon Barkley, the ceiling of the team is significantly higher than it is if Tank Bigsby's finding success. No offense to Tank Bigsby. Now, this is all just part of the frustration around the team. Now, Saquon Barkley is one of the people who was made available after the game. And so I would be remiss if we didn't go out to Saquon to get his feelings on his play and where things are at right now. And we know that Saquon Barkley is widely regarded as a very good leader and a guy who's accountable. And so this should come as no surprise, but Saquon Barkley met with the media and he took full responsibility for his play. Let's go out to Saquon.
How to go respond. We didn't do it. We got to go respond. We got to do a better job of putting teams away. And we didn't do that, and I definitely didn't help. Usually, obviously last year, other games, I was a big part of that. It's been kind of non-existent this year. So I got to figure it out for the team. I'm going to get it right.
So there you go. He ends up with saying, I'm going to get it right. But he admits he's not really been a big part of the success this year. Certainly not like last year. That is the kind of accountability you want. Now, there were others that came out after the game and had other thoughts. And I talked about the offensive line earlier. So we're going to, I know this feels like rapid fire, but we're going to go out there for a second. I'm actually going to skip one of the ones, but I mentioned earlier that Landon Dickerson talked about the fact that the Cowboys sent 5-man fronts and it wasn't something they were used to. He kind of said that, you don't have all the time in the world to try to run every potential look and every potential play in practice, but that what the Cowboys ended up showing them is something that they hadn't really seen a lot of before. That comes down to preparation. Is that on Stoutland? Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe one of the most interesting quotes of the post game came from Fred, don't call him Lane Johnson. Fred Johnson was asked about why the run game isn't working. And Fred Johnson had a very, very short response to it. Let's go out to Fred Johnson. Fred, why isn't the Eagles running game working?
The run game from day go. I'm not a coach.
I have no idea. I'm not a coach. Short and sweet. Good job to Fred Johnson. Get in, get out, get on with life. Now, the number one issue that I had from this game, other than the coaching and other than the absolutely woeful attempt to do anything of value, were the penalties. The Eagles committed a bevy of penalties, which they've done a lot this year. I think they're up to 5 games now with 7 or more penalties, 8 or more penalties. It's been horrible. And the only person who seemed to shout that out in a really meaningful way post-game was Jordan Mailata. So we're going to wrap up our little tour around the offensive line, because that ultimately is what Jordan Mailata thinks really did doom the team on Sunday. It was the issues that they had with penalties. Let's go out to Jordan Mailata. Jordan, let us in.
Playing behind the sticks in the first and second down. Just the penalties that have been very costly to us. That just requires focus. Honestly, it's something that takes no talent, and so we're professionals. We should be I shouldn't be false starting, shouldn't be holding, and all that stuff really adds on to. Then when we get to third down, and we're just like, okay, we're third down and 7 or third down and 11, just really unfavorable down and distances to try and trick the defense when they know, shoot, they got 11 yards to gain the first down and it's probably going to be a pass. So, we are putting ourselves in a pretty predictable, I guess, down and distance when it comes to third down. But that's just because of how we're handling the first and second down. We're not taking care of the business up front or just shooting ourselves in the foot. So,
Kind of tells the story, doesn't it? I think that's it. Penalties are something you can control, largely. The inability to line up properly, that's something you can control. The ability to not go and move early, that is under your control. There was a pass interference call in this game that I thought was absolutely mind-numbing, where CeeDee Lamb goes and essentially stiff arms the defender, like right under the chin. And yeah, there was contact both ways, but that ended up being the kind of play that blew the game open as well. All right, so I'm done talking about the Eagles. That was a very large chunk of today's show. I kind of figured it was going to be. I wanted to get to a couple of other things here before we have to head out for the day. I don't know what there is to say about the Philadelphia Union today. The Union are a team that I have a very interesting relationship with. There was a time that I was a season ticket holder. There was a time that I was credentialed media. I like the Philadelphia Union. I find them to be one of the more maddening teams in Major League Soccer, largely because their owner, Jay Sugarman, mostly refuses to spend money in a competitive way. And they've had a front office executive. Their sporting director, Ernst Tanner, has been probably the best executive in Major League Soccer for a few years now, able to build a Shield-winning team twice now. They've won the Shield, Supporter Shield, most points in the league in a regular season. He's been able to build a team like that despite the financial constraints. And yet the Union find themselves out in the conference semifinals. They lost on Sunday, 1-0. Andre Blake got hurt in the game. He gave up the goal, but eventually, I think it was around the 56th minute or so. Blake is standing around midfield. Everything's kind of getting thrown forward because it's a single elimination game, which I want to talk about in a second. And Blake sprints all the way back down his half of the field. He dives out. If you haven't seen the play, just go look up Andre Blake, and I guarantee you'll find it everywhere. He makes this ridiculous diving, slapping motion, almost runs into the left goal post, and keeps the ball out of the net and keeps the Union in the game, but he hurts his hamstring in the process, and the Union end up going on to lose the game. Westfield has 2 moments in this game where there's a beautiful cross to him, and he just has to put a good touch on the ball, and the ball goes in the back of the net. One, it almost looked like he tried to meg Matt Freese, the U.S. men's national team's #1 netminder. That one goes askew. There's another one later on. Again, it's another beautiful cross in the box. All he has to do is put a gentle love tap, and it probably goes in just under the crossbar, and the Union tied the game, force extra time, and instead he skies it into the Sons of Ben. Totally inexcusable plays. And here's where the real negative is, right? Because Kevin Kincaid put together the list of disappointing postseason performances for the Philadelphia Union over the course of their history, and this is where it's at right now. Let me zoom in on this real quick. 2014 U.S. Open Cup final, 3-1 extra time loss at home. Was that the Vincent Nogueira one where the ball hits the crossbar? I don't remember. 2015 U.S. Open Cup final, 1-1 draw, lost 7-6 on penalty kicks at home. 2018 U.S. Open Cup final, 3-0 loss on the road. 2021 Champions League semifinal, 4-0 loss on aggregate. We can also add to that the MLS Cup loss where Mbaizo lost Gareth Bale on the far post. It goes to extra time. Union drop MLS Cup. This one feels different, though. This one feels even worse. And the reason that it feels worse is because usually you would want to come back and say, oh, it'll be fine. Ernst Tanner will get this thing figured out. Except, as we covered on last week's show, Ernst Tanner is now under investigation again by Major League Soccer for accusations of racism, misogyny, and homophobia. And although he was cleared by the league, or they said that they couldn't corroborate any of the accusations, once The Guardian published another story about it, MLS reopened the case. And it feels like there's going to be a higher chance than not that if for no reason other than PR, Ernst Tanner might be gone from the Philadelphia Union. And for a guy who somehow has been able to build a contender year in and year out with legitimate financial constraints, the idea that he might not be around to lead that charge and that roster construction is a terrible thought. It genuinely is. And I don't want to say that it's all over, and I don't want to say that it's donezo for the Philadelphia Union, but boy, it feels like a really tough spot to be in. Because if they have to change sporting directors, I'm not loving it. Also, Ty Baribo gets subbed out when the Union need a goal, and there have been rumors about him maybe going to one of the New York teams next season. That would also not be ideal. We'll see what happens. Just feels like a total kick to the gut, punch to the gut, kick to the gonads. It's not ideal for the Philadelphia Union. So another season over. I might bring somebody on later this week to kind of put the whole thing into perspective. Now, I want to go to one last thing. And again, we can talk Union a little bit later on. I'm up against it. I have to jump for a meeting. But last thing I wanted to get to is actually a little bit of positivity today. I intended on spending a little bit of time talking about the Philadelphia Flyers' big win over the weekend against the New Jersey Devils. It was a pretty much end-to-end win. It was a really impressive game for the most part. And Dan Vladar kept the Union in a game that, like, even though he gave up 3 goals, any other goalie probably would have given up 5+. We got a little bit of good news today, so we're going to end with this. Jett Luchanko was traded today. If you're worried about what that means, I guess the good news is he was not traded within the NHL. This is a bit of OHL news. Jett Luchanko got traded from Guelph to the Brantford Bulldogs. What that means is when we saw that the Memorial Cup was getting awarded to Guelph, they were going to probably move on from a guy like Luchanko, who won't be there next year, try to get some assets for him because they want to get their team to be the best possibly can be for 2027. Luchanko now goes to Brantford. Brantford is the best team in the OHL. And so now if you are the Flyers and the Flyers brass and Flyers fans, now you get to see what Jett Luchanko is going to look like when he's surrounded by the best of the best in that league. And now we should hopefully find ourselves in a spot where when we talk about Jett Luchanko's stats and we talk about what Jett Luchanko is doing in junior, hopefully he's going to be able to find that scoring touch. Hopefully he will be less hesitant to take shots. And, mentioned this not that long ago. He's played 11 games in junior this year. He's got 17 points, 2 goals, 15 assists. We'll see what he looks like at Brantford. I would like to believe that this is going to be a positive move for him. We'll see if it ends up being a positive move or not. We'll talk about all that. We'll go into more detail about that later on this week. My plan right now is to do a show on Wednesday. Maybe do a Black Friday show. I'm not sure. But as of right now, the plan is to do a Wednesday show. If anything changes, I will let you know on YouTube or on X or whatever. I'll put those notes out. But in the meantime, if I don't see you between now and Thanksgiving, I want to thank you for joining me live on Facebook, YouTube, and X. If you listen to the podcast feed, the big thank you to each and every one of you who listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. I am truly thankful for all of you who join me in the comments section, for all of you who send me messages after the fact on Twitter or in Instagram DMs or comment on things on TikTok. I am genuinely thankful for each and every one of you. We should be back on Wednesday, and I'll give you a much more heartfelt thank you. But until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. That's also the name of the show. Have a marvelous Monday. I'll talk to you Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show.